That's a bit of mock-up.
It's a bit of mock-up. That'll do nicely. All right, now, if we just go to under credentials, right, we can see that this guy's been a dangerous goods transport trainer for 5 years and is an associate member. So, a bad way, albeit an entertaining way, to cross-examine on this would be to say, assuming your colleague is now ostensibly the hapless author of this, is, now sir, you've been a transport trainer for 5 years?
Yes, sir.
5 years, that's been your job?
Yes.
You haven't got beyond that?
Is that you mean that I haven't got to actually drive the transport?
Well, can you even drive the transport, or do you only train people to drive?
I train them to drive.
All right, and that's the limit of your career aspirations.
I wouldn't want to drive a truck.
I see. And I see that you're an associate member of the AIVGC.
That's correct, at the time of writing the report.
Right. So you've now finally become a member?
A full member.
Right, and that's taken you a lot of effort.
I was required to prove my competency.
And it took you longer than the average.
I'm not sure what the average is.
Are you sure of many things in your
I'm sure I'm a full member now.
Now, the point about this is that short party play example is if the person who's being subjected to it finds it, or may find it, a mixture of humiliating and annoying. The point, though, is not what he thinks. The point is the argument embedded in the lawyer's questions, the argument being directed at the decision maker, namely, look, you don't need to worry about this person, they don't get up to scale for you. So the bit of sadistic overdoing of it is designed to keep the target audience entertained at the witness's expense. So the witness becomes as I said, a transmission tower, or simply a point of reference for an argument that has been phrased as a series of questions. Now, a couple of consequences of this. The first consequence is, even if during examination in chief you had an irresistible urge to look at the lawyer who was asking you questions, despite what I said to you earlier, if you maintain this same irresistible urge to look at the cross-examiner, then you should understand that you and lemmings are extremely similar. And you're happy to wear that label, right? Because in cross-examination, I as the cross-examiner are typically standing and you are sitting. I can move, you can't. I ask the questions and you must answer. It's a very, very unequal power play. What you want more than anything else when you're being cross-examined is to be able to avoid eye contact with the cross-examiner and buy yourself, that's buy B-U-Y, buy yourself the maximum amount of space and empty visual field and time. So, if you do not look at the cross-examiner who is attacking you, if instead you look into a blank spot behind the jury or next to the judge, you will find that you have a significantly enhanced capacity to put up with this nonsense and to answer it in a very calm, collected and reasonable way. Why is that important? Because if you do that in control, that is, you don't play the game that the cross-examiner wants to play, you look increasingly better and the cross-examiner looks increasingly desperate. So the graphs go like that, up and down, okay? If you keep looking at your cross-examiner, the likelihood is that you'll have to go on his or her journey, which is not where you want to go. In particular, there is a high risk that you'll actually try to fight back. That increases the cross-examiner's ability to twist anything that you say and use it for a purpose that you never intended. So, don't look at them, use the water glass, take all the time you need to answer. Related to that is that it often will be, you'll be correct when you say, I don't want to answer yes or no. What you must agree on with your lawyer, yours, is that they understand that in cross-examination, whenever you say, would you like me to explain, that tells your lawyer that when the cross-examination finishes, your lawyer should re-examine you and ask you questions based on would you like to explain. So they can say, well, Mr. Expert, during the cross-examination you were asked this question and you said yes, but I'd like to explain. What was it you wanted to explain? In short form, you have another chance after the cross-examination to explain this stuff. But you must tell your lawyer by way of your answer during the cross-examination, they can ask you those questions. Never assume that at the end of the cross-examination you'll get a chance to talk to your lawyer. There is no rule or guideline that gives you any such chance. So, unless you can use a phrase so that your lawyer says, whenever he or she says, would you like me to explain, then they know to do it, they have no way of knowing where you can improve stuff or fix it up. So this is a duty that you have to take on yourself. If you don't do it, they can't guess. And remember, because most of the lawyers you work with won't know the area in which you work, they can't tell whether your answers give them another opportunity or not, unless you explicitly make it obvious to them. There's another benefit from this. Sometimes you will find that a judge will say to you, yes, Ms. Expert, I want to know the answer to that now. That's fantastic. It never ever gets any better. When you're asked by a judge to explain something to them, it's a one-on-one tutorial. You forget everybody else in the courtroom. You look at him or her, you do your best, and when they look like they're not quite getting it, you say, well, no, Your Honour, what little part of that would you like me to put in another way? You don't say, I see Your Honour doesn't get that. See? You understand intuitively what works as communication and what doesn't. It never ever changes. Right? The sheet I gave you on tormentor and tormentee is designed to reflect what we've been talking about here. It's something you can read any old time. But if you play cross-examination according to the traditional rules, you're the one who's tormented by the cross-examiner. Follow what's on that sheet and you'll turn it around. You'll be surprised how easily you'll turn it around. With just some very simple mechanics of where you face, having the water glass to hand, always knowing that if you need time to think about something, you say, excuse me, I've got to think about that before I answer it. Take the time that you need. Finally, if you're ever asked to do calculations in a courtroom, and you might have a calculator with good girls, right? Just say, excuse me, when I'm doing calculations, I like to get it right. Can we please have an adjournment so I can go into a quiet room and do it? Sitting up in a witness box in front of other people, some of whom hate you, trying to do calculations and get it right, that's a form of gambling that I frankly don't recommend, except to my opponent's witnesses. They can take on any odds they like of that sort. Any questions before we close the session off?
Not a question, but more a comment. I was in the coroner's court for a few hours, and to look at the judge would have been almost impossible.
Yep.
The judge was sort of up about there somewhere.
Yes.
And the other thing is, the microphone was here.
Yes.
And everything was recorded. I kept getting told, speaking to the microphone, Mr. Murray. So I guess you could manipulate it. If I had known what you know now, I would probably have done it differently. But probably, I don't know whether I can even move the seat. The box isn't very big.
A number of the New South Wales courts are appalling in terms of design for experts, so much so that you might have a situation where you say to the judge, "Excuse me, Your Honour, because of what I'm going to have to explain here, might I please move to somewhere else in the courtroom with a microphone so that everybody can see what I'm doing?" And they can always say no, but you've got to ask. Yes, sir.
I've seen one expert witness in a trial situation. The judge was to their right and the jury to their left.
Yes.
So who should be placed in the situation?
Okay. Where there is a jury, the jury is the decision maker. Never mind about the judge. Always look at the jury if there's a jury, or rather look towards them, right? If there's a judge, look towards the judge. Any more? One more, yes, sir.
Yeah, it really relates to the session before lunch. Quite frequently get asked to make a comment on foreseeability, which is my understanding of the court's prerogative to decide foreseeability. At the moment, I say that and decline to make a comment. But how would you suggest answering the question of, in your view, was this foreseeable?
I'd answer it with a question. I'd say, would you please tell me exactly what you mean? I don't want to pretend to be a lawyer here. Seriously. And the reason why is because there are some judges who get very, very cranky if they see a non-lawyer entering into what they see as being a lawyer's field. Foreseeability is such an issue. They may sit there saying nothing and see it inside. So it's much better if you say, I understand that's a legal term. In what way are you asking me to comment on that? As a protective thing. And then you've covered off all the judges.
Yeah, sorry, just further to that very briefly. I also get asked to comment on what laws were, acts and regulations and other laws were being broken at the time. I would have thought that's the prerogative of the court. Anything I say ought to be inadmissible and quite often gets objected to anyway.
Right. Prior to 1995, those questions could not be asked of you because they breached what was called the ultimate issue rule. Post 1995, that rule no longer strictly applies on paper. However, it applies inside the heads of every lawyer trained prior to 1995. So you'll be asked it, and when you're allowed to answer it depends on when the decision maker was trained and what mindset they're using, pre-95, post-95.
Yeah, I'm talking about the report, not in court.
You're asked in the report.
Yeah.
In my view, that's totally improper. That's a legal question. It's not for you.
All right, I think we need to cut it there. Thank you, Hugh.
Thanks all.